What's up, guys and gals of the movement world? It's Sean Mishka, the Movement Miyagi, coming to you once again on behalf of Football Beyond the Stats and our Movement Play of the Week. This week for Week 13 of the 2023 National Football League season. And today we're going to get into three plays. We're going to make them brief because they're going to have some threads that we're going to be able to pull upon that create some themes about this respective mover, about the qualities and the characteristics that lead into his process of solving movement problems out on a football field. And there are very few that rival this respective player in these types of situations and problems that we're going to find him in today. And that player is offensive weapon, sort of the X factor of all X factors in today's National Football League. Deebo Samuel, wide receiver, running back, whatever it is that he's playing for the San Francisco 49ers. Few players have the ability to elevate the entire tactical strategy of their whole team quite the same way as Deebo Samuel. Arguably, the only other player that is really remotely close to him would be on his own team in Christian McCaffrey, number 22 for the San Francisco 49ers, who we have featured here before. Both players have been former members of our All Movement team, and it's likely that we're about to see them again this season, as we have earlier this season with Christian McCaffrey. We're probably about to see each one of them at some point, in about 4 or 5 weeks with our All Movement team when that's announced. So what we're going to see today from Deebo Samuel is a guy that when he's on is adaptable, particularly in abundant and degenerate fashions, is any player in the league, particularly in traffic-oriented scenarios and situations. I used to kind of point to Nick Chubb, Cleveland Browns running back, who's currently injured with an ACL, MCL, in this kind of like epitome of how someone should move in a very authentic and crafty and adaptable way through traffic. But with Chubb out, Deebo Samuel kind of becomes that guy. And yet he's used in ways that it isn't just about the traffic, as we're about to see today, but it's in finding this really functional fit between the solutions that he's coordinating, controlling, and organizing, and the problem and the opportunities that exist within that problem. So without further ado, let's get into these plays, all three of them. The first one, of course, his first touchdown, and then the other two following up from there. So we see Samuel here, and really the glory that we're about to find, even though the play is relatively quick. Let me get on back to it here. Again, 3 touchdowns on Sunday, and he was able to back up his trash talk as the NFL video YouTube says here. He was running his mouth a bit about the NFC Conference Championship game from last year where Brock Purdy, their starting quarterback, went down, and Philadelphia obviously was able to go on to a pretty easy victory and then find themselves in the Super Bowl a couple of weeks later. And Deebo obviously had kind of stated that they are the much better team. And here they march into Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, taking on what would be considered one of the NFL's top teams in the Philadelphia Eagles, and obviously put a complete ass kicking upon them. Now we find them in the third quarter here, and the score is only 14-6, but Deebo's kind of starting to feel himself at this point. And that's key, because when a guy starts feeling themselves like this, and I mean that in a good way, they start to be able to move in a really unbridled, really creative, really natural and nuanced way that is authentic to who they are. So let's watch it again at 100% speed. You're going to hear me geek out about Deebo and what he does in a number of instances here today. But I want to start to paint this picture one more time at 100%, and then we'll go ahead and get into the 50% speed on this one. I think there's some threads that we're going to be able to pull upon. When we talk about dexterity, or the ability to solve any emerging movement problem in any situation, in any condition, as you guys have heard me talk about in the past, we know that that is underpinned by this really sensitive perceptual attunement, a pickup in a sensitivity to the information in the world that is going to detect our opportunities to move, or they're going to specify the opportunities to move. Then that feeds into, in a constant circular perpetual way or fashion, right into the intentions and the decisions of the player, forming this skilled intentionality from Kyverstein and Reitfeld, who skilled intentionality is just remaining open and responsive to a rich landscape of affordances. And when Deebo is on, these two things, this perceptual attunement or sensitivity to information sources, the sensitivity to opportunities, and the feeding into this skilled intentionality, this openness and responsiveness to a wide range of opportunities. That's just a fancy mumbo jumbo scientific way of saying he's super hyper adaptable to the what is. And that's what I really want to paint this picture upon today. So our playback speed, let's go to 50%, because now we're going to see who Deebo Samuel really is. And this is the type of play as so many here at our movement plays of the week, and our really like deep dive into who a player is as a problem solver in their form of life, their ways of being and acting. What we find from Deebo is he can run in any number of ways when he has the ball in his hands. He is the king of yards after the catch for a very specific reason. Again, probably to only be rivaled by guys like Christian McCaffrey and maybe even George Kittle, both guys who were on his own respective roster. But the reason why he's able to do this is all stemming from right here, guys and gals. A lot to do. And notice I'm circling his head. I'm circling his head for a reason. It's not just the perceptual pickup from his visual perceptual system or processes. It's how those things feed into the decisions that he makes in the intentional aims to act in a given way. His ability to run somebody over, to hit the gas pedal, to pull back on the gas pedal and decelerate, to maybe change tempos and speeds and paces, or to cut and maneuver and change his strategies. As good as it comes with a ball in his hands, particularly in traffic scenarios. This very first play is a little different, obviously out on the edge and outside of the hashes, but we're going to find him interacting with traffic. And when it comes to traffic, just like I've highlighted with Nick Chubb in the past, it isn't just about traffic of one's opponents, but it's opponents and teammates. So let's look at what he might be picking up here, okay? Because all of these things end up being a way for us to put ourselves in the movement problem solving story for Deebo Samuel. Let's look at some things that he might be picking up. Look already at where his eyes might be going. Now, again, he's behind a dark visor. We don't have eye tracking glasses on him, but we can watch his head. And from the movement of the head, we can gather an understanding to what he's scanning for and what information he's visually picking up and what it might mean for him. 50% speed. Okay. Watch him here as he gets out into space. This is the traffic that I'm talking about here. And again, if you guys have followed here at Football Beyond the Stats, our movement play of the week, you know that when we see scenarios and situations like this, we can set up slices or snippets of the game that are highly representative and highly alive to use in their training and practice environment. We can look at it right here, right now, with what Deebo's doing, running in a curvilinear fashion towards the sideline with about 6 to 10 yards of width to operate in and 10 to maybe 20 yards of length. We can already see that, as I've highlighted before. So think about how you might be able to facilitate or channel this type of movement behavior right off the bat. But I want you guys to look at a few things. Don't just watch the movement actions, even if it's from the head in the scanning of a Deebo Samuel here, because even though that perceive to act to perceive, the two feed into one another, and they are scaffolded by that intentionality or those decisions that one makes. Look at how the problem is unfolding. And notice what I mentioned before. We see this relationship right here, right? And I said earlier, it's not just about the opponents. though those will be highly specifying. It's these dyadic relations that we're going to find here, right? And these two that I just highlighted, these opponents aren't dyadic relations, but this one certainly is, and it will be key and vital to what plays out here. Not only because you have the best blocking tight end, or at least the most all around, most skillful tight end in the entire league in George Kittle, a guy who can pass, catch, and get yards himself after the catch, but also a guy who can run routes, and also a guy who, as we're about to find out here, can block like a mother. So we're about to find here that Deebo understands this. This shared affordance connection for him is what he's coupling his movement behaviors in relation to. So we see some of these relationships, and they become very important to us as to what could be unfolding and what it might mean for where it is that Deebo's going to go and how it is that he needs to go there. But I highlight all of these things for you because remember, these are information sources that he could be picking up that are going to specify his opportunities to move. Okay, let's watch it now kind of play out a little bit. We see him look at his head. Boom. Constant update and pickup. I don't want you guys to miss it. And if you glance away even momentarily, even if you blink, you're about to miss Deebo. Maybe look from left to right and back left and back right. And he's constantly getting this updated perceptual pickup of the information in the world. We see him little by little, head always on the move, picking up the information, getting himself an updated access to the what is, the world as its best model. This is a thread, guys and gals, that we're going to pull upon not only today on this play, but then again on the second play and again on the third play. We're going to see that it is part of Deebo Samuel's form of life. And it's what allows him to take those athletic characteristics in those various ways that he has to act and actually put them to use. There we see, and now Reddick is a guy that I've put on my all movement team before. He completely bites on this. And remember, behavior affords behavior. But we see Reddick completely bite on this. This is not a quite so elite problem solving from Harrison Riddick, but we watch Deebo now, and again, eyes behind a visor, but look at the head, look at the eyes. It seems intuitively obvious. I get that. But what you're going to find from the more skilled performers is these glances, and they look long enough to gain access, to gain direct contact to the information of the world to tell them as to what they might need to pick up. You're going to see Deebo is an elite, and I'm going to use the word processor, but that's incorrect. He's an elite perceiver. And particularly, that elite perceiver is not just looking for shits and grins. He's looking to see. And that which what he sees and picks up is directly feeding into and channeling how it is that he's going to move. Again, we're going to see it as a trend here. Let's go to 100% speed in our second play as we work through these. Again, hopefully you're seeing some of the things that I am. Now we see Deebo down at the bottom of our screen, split wide right. He's going to run a more traditional wide receiver oriented route here. But it's what he does after the catch that is so damn special. And it's about to find out. Again, remember, dexterity, according to Nikolai Bernstein, the ability to solve any emerging movement problem in any situation and in any condition. Condition would be that which what they dealt with going to Philadelphia. The most hostile fans that you're going to find, people throwing beer cans onto the damn field, people throwing snowballs, or you got rain, you got these types of condition changes going to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Not only with the stadium and the Eagles fans, but what the weather brought us in week 13. Condition changes. Turf versus grass. Grass in California versus grass in Philadelphia. You kind of get where I'm going with this. Those are those condition changes. But situation changes outside the numbers, running on an arc in short space in a condensed field in the red zone, to now catch a ball over the middle of the field, and you got to make somebody miss, but you got to make somebody miss in any means possible, and that's where we're about to find at 100% speed. You make somebody miss by any means possible. Deebo is as good as it gets with shaking guys off and then going into true playmaker mode. Again, these plays don't take that long. I get that. But there's a lot of information here. Oops, I got to go back a little more. We're still at this. I should have had my bookmarks in here, but I obviously don't. So let's watch it again at 100% speed one more time through. Okay. And watch now. Where's the head? Where's the eyes? Look how quick they scan and move, and how deliberate Deebo Samuel may be with his perceptual pickup of information in the world. Always speculating. Remember, information is power. It's power because that information connects the problem that is there, that's unfolding, that emerging, that is different and variable from every other problem that player has faced, to the solution. And that solution becomes different because it is fit to this respective problem. I know it's something that you guys have heard me harp on in the past, but you're going to find here again, Deebo Samuel is good as it gets. Perceive to act, act to perceive. Remember what I said. He has abundance within his movement toolbox, within his skill set. It's here that becomes the calling card for his adaptability or his dexterity. He doesn't just resort to a cutting, agility, evasive action. Agility is in finding a solution to make that guy miss and to break tackles or to force a missed tackle under any circumstances. It needs to be functional, practical, useful, relevant to fit the problem. Deebo Samuel has a little bit of a mean streak if you've watched him move, and when you've watched him move when he's on. When he's on, he will be equally adept at shrugging a guy off, running somebody over, stiff-arming them, using a physical strength or power-oriented strategy, as he will be to breaking down and juking somebody in a elusive and evasive manner. Equally as adept. That degeneracy and abundance sets the tone. But now, again, watch the eyes and watch how it changes his updated perceptual pickup. And not only that, but then how it flows into how he finds himself acting. Okay? Boom. Head is always on the scan. The eyes are always on the lookout. And guys and gals, it may seem as though I'm making a lot of this, but I hope you guys see how rare of a connection this really is to the world around him. It may seem subtle, but what we find from Deebo is this: he's changing his path, it's changing his behaviors, it's changing his speed. Ultimately, it's changing the overall organization, coordination, and control of his movement strategies and solutions. The functional fit of that movement problem to the movement solution, or excuse me, the movement solution to that peculiar movement problem. Let's watch from a different angle, particularly again, because he's running into a really soft space and zone, that it's right here where we watch that head and how quickly he takes that information. And we can tell that he's not briefly just looking, again, moving for movement's sake. He's looking, and you can tell he's getting the information that he needs. Let's see it at this angle one more time, 50% speed. And what I want you to really do and see is just how closely coupled he is to the information about that movement problem. Okay. It isn't just looking, he is detecting and gathering in a highly attuned, highly sensitive way. Here's the best view of his eyes. And granted that we can't see it as much from this big bird's eye view as to what it does to his actions, but I think you guys can kind of pick up what I'm putting down here and to see how special this really truly is. Okay. Let's see. It's gonna go to 100% speed now. Normal speed on this last play to come. And now he's scored twice. He's feeling himself. He's in his zone. He's in his flow. And again, Deebo Samuel, when he's in his zone and he's in his flow, it can be any movement problem in front of him, including a highly complex one with a lot of moving parts. Complexity just being about many moving parts, right? All acting and coalescing in unison to a certain degree. It often increases the difficulty of the problem that there is to be solved because a player will be swimming in information. There's more potential information to pick up that could be specifying or could lack specificity. Okay. There's a distinction to be made there. Some information is there and it doesn't tell us anything about the opportunities present within the problems in the world. But then there are other information sources, particularly about the behaviors of opponents or the behaviors of one's teammates or interpersonal distance or changing and emerging gaps or closing gaps for a guy as attuned and adaptable as Deebo Samuel that is highly specifying, relevant for us to pick up. And where we're talking about these movers in traffic, they can make it look easy, as Deebo does here, and he's able to hit the gas pedal. People will look at this and just think, you know, he happened to get lucky. This gap opened and he was able to have the gas pedal to utilize that acceleration and ultimately that short range, mid-range speed to exploit said gap. Guys and gals, it don't miss the forest through the trees here. As my man Bruce Lee would say, don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all the heavenly glory around the finger or what that finger might be pointing at. Let's focus on what the finger and the relationship have to one another, to the moon or the movement problem that is to be solved. Okay. Again, one more time, 100% speed. And then let's watch it at 50%. You guys are seeing, hopefully, that which what I am seeing as well, which is Deebo Samuel in traffic, particularly across situations. It could be with a bunch of teammates and a bunch of opponents. It could be with one teammate and several opponents. It could be 1v1 scenarios, as we're about to see some of these local movement problems by local movement problems. Remember, we can take these slices and snippets of the game, which then inform us as to what we might be able to do to channel this type of adaptable behavior in our own athletes. Let's watch it at 50% speed and speculate how Deebo Samuel's form of life, perceive to act, act to perceive, with high amounts of intentionality, openness, and responsiveness to a landscape of affordances. We see how open he is. He isn't just on the gas pedal right here. Look at how many bodies are in this space. Look at how many dyadic relationships there are here. Dyadic relationship just means two others in relation with one another, right? So you have teammate and a blocker, teammate and a blocker, teammate and a blocker. Three teammates right here running into space with one free guy here and a bunch of chasers that are in green coming and chasing him, right? It isn't just find for Deebo. It isn't just go find this way in space through this. It's not what it is. It's not as simple as that. Deebo, or the more skilled performer, may make it look simple like that. But we see plenty of players in these types of wide receiver screen situations, these quick hitting screens, get tackled by maybe one of these guys coming, right? It's pretty common. We might see that guy run in right into this traffic and find this congestion and not be able to pick and choose and find their way through to exploit a gap. Watch any NFL Sunday, and you're going to see plenty of situations like this where it unfolds. We don't often see a guy do this in this, at least in this type of way, but watch it step by step, moment to moment, and think about how this movement problem, because right now we can see that gap opening, and even with these three guys right here, breathing down on his right-hand side and back behind him, He knows they're there. We watch him just, and he knows it's a threat. It is threatening to him, but he uses that while still taking in the information about the what is in front of him and what's unfolding as this gap opens up to his right. And now he singles in. You see him look right there to the defender, and he can look and play with them accordingly. Now, granted, it's a linebacker. I get that. Okay. It's not like a defensive back that's going to try to hawk him, but that guy's got an angle initially. Initially. This is still Deebo Samuel. Action capabilities still do matter. Let me get back a little further. Remember how I always talk about all the analysis in the world is only worth a handful of spit to us if we're not going to be able to do something with that analysis, to let it set the tone for our learning and practice environments. We can make players or help players to become much more comfortable in these types of scenarios and situations by placing them and putting them in traffic scenarios. How might we do that? We can see it already. Let me go back a little bit here if I would. So we could start that with a player getting a ball in their hands. And as my man Blake would tell you, who's out at my learning environments with me and does a great job, tremendous job at helping me and assisting me with the crafting of these types of movement problems. We set up movement problems that look and feel and act and unfold very similar to this for the players that we partner with also. They could be on the offensive side, they could be on the defensive side, they could be on both sides, and they could be around different intentional aims for different players. But if we're talking about the skilled ball carrier, we could either have that player just enter the space already with the ball in their hand, or we could have them receive the ball in the similar situation as we do here. Let me get some stamps out so you can kind of see what we might do with this movement problem. Okay. We might, let's see, where would I like to go? Like if we're having this player start from any number of places, and now granted, they're not nice and neat on, say, a yard marker, but we might make the movement problem, say, be 8 to 10 yards in its width to start with. That player could enter in any one of number of initial conditions. Again, we could toss them the ball and they could start by receiving the ball and entering the space. We could have them start where they might have their back to it and they're going to turn into it. They could start head up, already ball in their hand. Any number of ways, really, there are no rights or wrongs. We will sometimes have them choose the place that they're going to start to enter this workspace, or they might start where one of these stars is. Typically, we would have the beginning and end be kind of in the workspace size as a whole, as I'm highlighting with the stars, be cones in this situation. Okay. And let's just say it is from this far a distance. Now, typically we would have it probably in more of the 15 to 25 or 30 in length, as opposed to 45 or 50 as it might be here. But let's just say then those stars are creating, and let me get my double lines out here. That workspace size would be something, like this type of width, 10 to 8 to 15, probably more so, is more accurate. And when I say width, I mean here, right? So this type of workspace size is what we would create to kind of outline our workspace boundaries or areas where players might run into that would look, feel, and act very similar to this beginning traffic scenario. And we would then have any number of players, usually as many as we can get, actually, for this player who's entering the workspace. We would obviously have many of those dyadic relationships that I mentioned earlier. We would have as many interactions as we could get, usually in like the this type of numbers. Okay, this type of numbers being in a 4v4 type of scenario would be pretty optimal in most of our cases. If we can have 8 guys, 4 offensive players, 4 defensive players, or even if we don't have that many offensive players, but we got the skilled player who we might be able to have someone else act as a teammate, because their behaviors are important to facilitate the behaviors of the skilled player, but they don't necessarily have to be an offensive lineman. You kind of get where I'm going with this, or a tight end or something of that sort. Now, we might also put any number of chasers, and I'm trying to get my drawing back out here. We typically will have a chaser entering this space from behind, or as it would be coming from back here, chasing to try and meet that guy. So the player, that guy being this player in the Deebo Samuel situation, that player is not trying to be in a rush necessarily to get through the traffic and to find opening and closing gaps, these emerging gaps, but we want them to behave in a way where they can own what it is that they're doing and where it is that they're going and how they might be organizing their movement behaviors. Okay. Hopefully that makes some sense. And we can have that play out with a high amount of problem variability. No two problems are ever the same, thus neither any two solutions. And that player would just be trying to get, say, maybe to the 35-yard line in this case. So maybe it's, a 10-yard to 15-yard, 20-yard length. And they would just be navigating through this traffic to find themselves to the goal or the line to gain. Now, we have had it play out where we would have this guy chasing from behind. So when the offensive player gets through and meets or reaches the goal line, the goal not necessarily being the end zone goal line, but in this situation, say the 35 as he reaches it here, then the chaser will chase to him and the problem opens up in a similar way. So we've actually, ironically enough, had similar behaving slices of the game, 4v4 and then plus a chaser who usually will enter the mix that creates this opportunity then to be chased and to maybe make that guy miss or to change your tempo and your speed, your rhythm in accordance to that player. An easy way, guys and gals, if you have 4 or 5 players on either side to create these types of movement problems. Yes, it has complexity. Yes, there is a certain level of chaos. We aren't going to the ground with it or tackling, but what we are doing is trying to check these behaviors back to the game and back to these types of scenarios and situations. So I know that we got into a lot here, but these types of scenarios can be trained. This type of movement behavior that is highly attuned, sensitive to the information, we can lead to a high degree of openness, responsiveness, intentionality, and accurate decision making. Even though we saw Deebo make fast decisions, it's about making accurate decisions that match and meet the needs of the problem. And ultimately acting adaptively right here. So again, no two problems are the same, neither are any two solutions. The problem, because of how it changes, should require the player to act adaptively, like what we saw from Deebo here today, because I believe these types of things can and should be trained and football practices and training environments of football at all levels. So really cool stuff from Deebo Samuel here in week 13 of the National Football League season. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed diving into it. If you have questions, thoughts, ideas, anything of the sort, put them in the comments section below. If you like this video, give me the thumbs up, hit subscribe, share it with your people. I'd highly appreciate it. So for Sean Mishka, the Movement Miyagi, this has been Football Beyond the Stats and our Movement Play of the Week. I will talk to you guys in week 14.